Here's the biggest secret you need to know about productivity. You don't actually need productivity advice. You need focusing advice. And that's why in this video, I want to give you my personal 10 tips on how you can focus so you can do less better. Here we go. One of my favorite things to do for productivity is to have a song when I'm working in the background and loop it. Why this tip works, and you might want to try it, I find that song acts as sort of a white noise in the background. You can zone in and focus more because it's predictable, familiar, and it's not distracting like new songs. Sometimes that's overstimulating. The song can be anything personal to you that you really love, and loop it over and over again while you're working. Tip number 2, this one's huge. Simple is better than complex. Let's take the example of morning routines. Now, these can be great. They can put you in a good mood. They start your day off right, not a problem. But what is a problem is when I talk to a lot of people, their morning routine is like 60 steps. Getting up at 5 a.m., gotta do your meditation, go to the gym, look at your goals 5 times, green smoothie. The problem is that that's too complex. I've found one of the most productive morning routines I can have is I wake up, make some coffee, and I get to work. In the act of trying to be more productive, trying to take care of yourself, you actually overcomplicate things and you make it harder than it needs to be. How can you simplify your lifestyle? How can you simplify your routines? How can you simplify things? Because simple is often way better than complex. Next up, this is my favorite point of all time for productivity. This thing has made me happier, has made me feel like I'm winning at the end of the day instead of like 20 more things I didn't get done and I'm not working enough. It's called the focusing question. Ask yourself this: what's the one thing I need to do today to make me feel satisfied with my day? Another way you can phrase that: if this were the only thing I was to get done today, would I be satisfied with my day? When you ask yourself that, it causes you to eliminate 80% of everything you were going to do and focus in on that 20% that matters for you. Next up, we have to-do lists, but not in the way most people do them. So most people do a to-do list and they put everything they need to do on a day on a sheet of paper or a Post-it note. And that's not bad. I'm not trying to knock it, but when I did that, I found myself ending up with like 20 boxes on there. Things like respond to emails, take out the trash, really unimportant things. And so what I started doing, making a weekly to-do list and literally write to-do with 3 sections of what you need to do that week using the one thing question. If this was the only thing I did this week, would I be satisfied with my week? And then all you have to do is do it. This system's really boring and simple, but it works way better in my opinion. You really want to benefit from this. Try to not put more than 10 things on your weekly to-do list. Personally, for me, that has been a huge game changer. Hack number 5, a bit of a personal story. I find that these help you. In my 20s, I was trying to do what you're seeing right now: create content, start a business. And the common piece of advice was you need to be posting on 8 different platforms: TikTok and Instagram, and don't forget an email list, 100 pieces of content a day. And so I did that, and on my productivity to-do list was 8 different things. Now, what's the problem with this? This burns you out real fast. And I finally, after like 2 months of doing this, had to look at myself in the mirror and say, does it have to be this hard? The content felt rushed and it wasn't as good as I thought it could be. And so I took an honest look at trying to do 8 different things at once. And I said, what if I just do something like this? Instead of 8, what if I focus on 1? If I put 8 times the amount of effort into 1, I bet I'd be 8 times further ahead. And that's what I did in 2020, and my YouTube channel exploded. So one of the biggest secrets with productivity is how can you do less but better? The saying, if you try to catch 2 rabbits, you never catch either. Very true for your life. If you're trying to go after 8 things at one time, you're gonna have 8 half-baked goals. The question you need to ask yourself, how can I go all in on one thing? This next tip, I was reading in a book about a famous study. It's called the lunchtime effect. The gist of it was there was parole hearings, deciding whether an inmate gets parole or we're gonna disapprove you. When you analyze the data, do you know what the biggest factor on if an inmate got parole or not was? Lunch. Had the judge ate, or were they running on fumes? And what they find is that at the start of the day, there's a much higher correlation to parole rates. And then before lunch, it goes to like 0%. It really illustrates this next productivity tip, and that is manage your energy, not your time. We think that all hours of the day are created equal, but that's not actually true. You can probably relate even when you have a couple hours and you're like, I'm gonna be productive. You get home from work, you're done working 8-10 hours. You're like, oh man, I just wanna sit and do nothing. So really find when you're most productive. And oftentimes for people, this is first thing in the morning. Cram all your important stuff that you need to do during that time. This is also known as golden hours. So like in golden hours, when the sun's coming up or when it's setting, it's perfect for lighting and cameras. Your energy has sort of a golden hour. So really pay attention to your energy levels and how they fluctuate throughout the day. And if you can, pair what you're trying to be productive on. So like your one thing, your most important task, with when you have your golden hours, when you're most alert, productive. That's a winning formula. Next up, so oftentimes with productivity, we think it's about adding things in. Let me add in the technique. Let me add in a timer. Let me add in a to-do list. It couldn't be further from the truth. Real productivity is removing things. I've often said that focus is nothing but the absence of distractions. When you remove all distractions, the only thing you're left with is focus. So for this point, take a look at like your most common distractions and how can you minimize or remove those from your life? And if you can't remove them, how can you put a lot of barriers between you and them? Let me give you an example. So this is my phone, and you might be thinking, what the heck is wrong with it? Did you drop it? It's actually a keyboard shortcut I set up to turn the whole thing red. And you're like, why would you want to do that? Doesn't that make your phone suck? That's the point. This thing was a distraction, so by putting a buffer in between me and it and making it less fun, you use it less. Because remember, what you're after is focus, and focus is nothing but the absence of distractions. Next one, this is one of my favorites. There's a thing called psychological startup time. Do you remember studying in school? Well, remember how if someone distracted you or you'd go on your phone or you'd see something, it kind of took you a bit to get back into the flow state, into the zone? That's what is known as psychological startup time, that it takes your brain time to actually zone in and focus. To avoid psychological startup time, one thing that I implement is batching tasks. Take the simple example of running errands. You got grocery, maybe your car's broken, so you're dropping it off. It's so much easier to put all those in one errand run or do all your errands on one day than try and sprinkle them out throughout the week. For me personally, Sunday is my day where I do all the miscellaneous things I need to get done. By not doing any of those during work days or rest days or anything like that, just on Sunday, has made such an impact on being able to not have the psychological startup time of, okay, at 2 p.m. I'm gonna go and pick that thing up. Because what you find is it's not just the 30 minutes you go and get something. It's gonna take you another 10, 20, 30, sometimes an hour to get back in the zone, back in the flow state. So what can you start batching together? And what you'll learn is that all that psychological startup time you actually get back. And once you're in that flow state, it's gonna take you way less time to stay there. This tip, pay attention to your sleep. Man, is this important. I was listening to a guy, an author, who wrote the book Why We Sleep, and he said that sleep is so powerful, if it was a supplement, it'd be a banned substance. It has that much of an impact on your performance, cognition. So over the course of the last 2 years, I have taken my sleep so seriously. I go to bed and wake up 7 days a week at the same time, going to bed around like 9, maybe 10 p.m. And I'm up pretty early, so around like 5. One thing that's really helped is getting this. This is the Oura Ring. It's pretty expensive. It's like $300, $400. But man, the point of this is not necessarily the data, but it almost gives you credit. It gives you a reason to really prioritize and take care of your sleep. You will learn so much about your sleep if you start paying attention, tracking it. And then what's really cool is you start pairing up, okay, why do I feel more productive today? And then you look at your sleep score and you're like, oh, it's because I got 2 or 3 hours of deep sleep. I crushed it. The more data you get, the more you can link your mental state to your performance. Number 10. If you're watching this video, you're probably a high achiever. You fall into the ambitious camp, where it's not like you're a sloth, but you burn the candle at both ends with gasoline in the middle, trying to go after your goals, your purpose. And that was me in my 20s. And so what I did is I would find stories about people like Michael Phelps, who trained 7 days a week instead of 5, 100 days extra a year on his competition, and that's why he's the best. You think that that's the formula for success. This tip is to take 1 day a week 100% off. I call this a sloth day, where it's your day to fully recharge and fully rejuvenate and do whatever the heck you want. You want to binge watch that show that came out on Netflix for 8 hours? You go for it. About a year ago, I started incorporating a full day off per week. Man, I found that a lot of my best ideas came on Sunday when I took a whole day off to do absolutely nothing. There's a great saying that if you want to be more creative, be less productive. What you find is that it's really hard for you to have these like insight moments where you're thinking, aha, that's what I'm gonna do with my life. It's really hard to get those like big realizations when you're just on this never-ending treadmill of doing more. You kind of know this too, don't you? Like, when do people get a lot of their best ideas? It's in the shower, when they're doing nothing, or it's in meditation, or it's in a journaling session. And they come back just full of new ideas. Think of yourself like a battery. You know, you're draining the battery throughout the week. If you never recharge, it's very dangerous. And that's where you hear terms like, I burnt out. It's like saying you're too busy driving to pull over and stop for gas. Eventually, you're gonna break down, you're gonna run out of fuel. And that, I think, metaphorically is what happens to a lot of high achievers that don't take time off ever. It's unsustainable, and your work throughout the week is actually worse because you're not full, you're not charged. Having a day for you to do nothing with no expectations and not trying to be productive, I have found has made me infinitely more creative. And if you want our help implementing any of this, I'll link down below where you can apply for our Metamorphic coaching program. We spend all of week 4 on just this. How do you find your one thing? How do you do less but better? So I'll link down below where you can speak to one of our coaches if you want to learn more for free. And by now you're realizing a lot of these productivity hacks are more habits. And so what I'd like to do now is encourage you to watch this video right here. Perfect follow-up. It's on 5 small habits that I do every single day that have changed my life. Thanks so much for watching. See you in the next video. Till then, stop settling, start living. See ya.